Grace and peace, everyone. This is Dr. T.C. Thomas, and you have tuned in to a special edition of Thomas Talks. Thomas Talks, where we hope to educate you, empower you, and uplift you. You can see by my shirt that today is Father's Day. Let me say happy Father's Day to all of the fathers, those men that help mold and shape our children, those men that help provide guidance and love to our children. Special shout out to my girls. They are my angels. They are my lovelies. They have made all of this gray hair come into my beard. I'm just joking. Those are my babies. I love you all. Happy Father's Day again to all of the fathers. You know, as we are embarking on this Father's Day, it is sad that George Floyd will not come home, could not hear Happy Father's Day from his children. Rayshard Brooks could not hear Happy Father's Day from his children. The list goes on as we continue to look at our world as it is in a turmoil, it's in an upheaval. It is tumultuous, it is problematic, and I share with you that the only change that can happen is if we turn our face to God to change the face of our situation. Yesterday, I don't know if you paid attention, but yesterday was the rally, the kickoff rally that Donald Trump had moving to election 2020. It was met with not as much fire that he had hoped. The seats were not packed. You know, I love when he makes statements and says, there's never been an empty seat in our rallies. Well, fact check, folks. There have been plenty of empty seats at his rally, including yesterday, where there were many, many seats. We're in the midst of a pandemic. They decided to have a rally. People in close proximities will be anxious to see the numbers in Tulsa that are already on the rise. We'll see how much further they rise because people are coming together in the middle of a pandemic. The health professionals have said to wear masks, to have social distancing. There are people that feel like that this is not a pandemic, that they're not going to get sick, and subsequently, it is going to cause more lives to be lost. We're almost at 120,000 lives being lost in just 3 months. It's sad. Let me just give you some highlights from his rally. He talked about that there were 1 million responses coming to the rally. Well, we know that there was fall way well short of 1 million people that was responded. There was supposed to be in excess of 20,000 in the BOK Center. There was supposed to be another 40,000 outside for a pre-rally speech that they took the stage down because there were only a couple of dozen of people. Then he went on to say that there were protesters that blocked the way for them to get into the BOK Center. Well, that was not true because CNN was on the ground and they were well away from the BOK Center. So again, another mistruth that comes out. He went on to talk about how he did not speak anything about Juneteenth and its significance. He did not say anything about the murders of George Floyd, of Rayshard Brooks, and the list goes on. Did not say anything about healing the country. But what he did say is that there were left-wingers who were Democrats who were trying to incite all of this violence. I find that very offensive because there were a number of people who you saw who were captured on film that were setting fires during the protests and trying to blame it on the African American population. They were not African American, but they were sent in to try to incite violence and the rioting and the looting. Again, peaceful protesting, which is what we were founded upon, now has been hijacked by this administration because he has decided to call them lowlifes, let me get it right, lowlifes, thugs, and they were less than. I just don't understand how peaceful protesters can be lowlifes and thugs. Then he decided to talk about holding our values. Well, I don't understand what our values are, because the values that he was speaking of is not prudent or conducive to black and brown people. They are prudent and conducive to his base, but not to black and brown people. Then he continued to go on and gave a racial epithet by saying that the coronavirus was the Kung flu. How racial can you be by calling it a name that it is not? It is COVID-19. It is the coronavirus. And he decided to shift to having a racial slur to talk about what was COVID-19. He continued to move on to talk about how Sleepy Joe is not there to bring the world together, and that there's going to be no law and order. As you all saw, he moved peaceful protesters. I shared with you before. He moved peaceful protesters with tear gas, pepper spray, rubber bullets, so that he could walk across the street and have a photo op in front of St. John's Church, which was a shame. It was a travesty. And I just don't understand how he thought that was in good nature, something that was going to help bring the nation together. He continues to not talk about systematic racism that exists. He made a joke yesterday of the testing. He said, I told him to slow the testing down. Well, the president's advisor said, well, it was tongue in cheek. It was a joking matter. People, there are almost 120,000 lives lost. This is not a joking matter. My dad used to say, everything's not funny. This is not a time that we should be laughing and making jokes. This is a time that we should be testing. We should be trying to ensure that those who do not have the virus don't get the virus by wearing masks and social distancing. Staying 6 feet apart, not rushing to the beach. I love the beach like the next person, but I don't want to be on the beach where everybody else could have coronavirus and all of the particles are going out because they are yelling, they're hollering, they're screaming. We have to be socially responsible so that we don't continue to infect other people. Then he took a snub at Roger Goodell. Now, I told you all last week that I had no problem with Roger Goodell making an apology, but my problem is that he did not pick up the phone and call Colin Kaepernick. That was a miss, Roger Goodell. He should have called Colin Kaepernick and said, I understand what you were trying to do in 2016. He goes on to talk about kneeling is disrespectful to the flag. Nobody's talking about the disrespect to black and brown people that we have been facing. He did not even acknowledge Juneteenth. He did not even acknowledge the 99-year history, but he stood there and spent 14 minutes talking about how he ran down the ramp at West Point when he didn't. He walked very slowly, and I'm not mad at you because it's a ramp with no railing, but then you lie and say, I ran down the ramp and they cut the tape off. They did not. They did not. Then the SDNY, they fired the Chief Justice of the SDNY. And then the president said, oh, that's handled through the Attorney General. I don't have anything to do with it. The Attorney General said, the president ordered me to fire him. The president's the only one who can fire him. So again, the consistent lies, the consistent mistruths. What must we do? I'm glad you asked. We must mobilize. We must prepare to vote. November is forthcoming. There is no way that you can organize a protest and you are not prepared to vote. You need to prepare to vote. Get every piece of documentation that you have to ensure that nobody will lock you out of what Dr. Martin Luther King marched for, so that we could exercise our right to vote. We must mobilize. We must make sure that we have voter rallies. We must make sure that we are inextricably intertwined with the necessary information so that we can ensure that our voices are heard. Go to the polls. Make sure you have a chair. Make sure you have some water. Do not allow long lines to disrupt your voting. Stay the course. Don't give up. Don't lose faith. We must mobilize. We must stay together, lock arm in arm, and be prepared to vote in November. I've had several letters from you, and I want to acknowledge today that there's a lot of you who have written me, who have said, can you address the questions that we've asked? I'm going to come with a special edition of Hot Topics to address some of the questions and conversations that I've had over these last 3, almost 4 weeks. I'm going to do that specially. I'm going to take on the tough questions, because if there's nobody speaking up, then we are silent. And silence is not an option. No longer must we be silent, but we must speak, and we must speak with authority. So listen, we must not lose focus. We must remain diligent, hopeful, and we must change the face of this world in which we live in. I'll be back soon to talk to you from those hot topics. But remember, this is Thomas Talks. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. Enjoy. Love on your children. Let them love on you. But remember, today is the first day of the best days of the rest of your life. We come to empower you, to uplift you, and to share the good news. God bless you. God keep you.